So tonight's talk is called Inspiration in the Face of Adversity. Now, our guest tonight will be given a voice to a really serious subject, that of living with cancer. And from a shocking diagnosis, which blindsided him on an idle Monday afternoon just over 2 years ago, he's going to remove the taboos, he's going to lift the stigma and shine a bright light onto something quite dark. And in the process, he'll discuss what it's like living in the shadow of cancer and get us all to recognise the fragility and delicate nature of life itself. So here to tell his remarkable story is the wonderful force of nature that is Austin Birks.
Thank you very much indeed, Nigel, and a very, very warm welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's fantastic that you've given up your time on a very cold and bitter winter's night to come and listen to my little story. Let me just say something. There was nothing special about me, and absolutely nothing at all. I'm exactly the same as everybody else. I just happened to have been in a situation where circumstances in life conspired to find myself all of a sudden with bowel cancer. So, can I ask first of all, is anybody familiar with this particular website that I've created called The Bag for Life? Anybody put your hands up if you have? Yeah? Seen it? Yeah? So, what I decided to do was I decided to utilise the experience I've had of being a cancer patient to try and, as Nigel said, debunk some of the myths and some of the fear that surrounds the word cancer and all that goes with it. Because there are certain words in English language which, if you hear them, and they apply to you personally, i.e. cancer, or indeed brain tumour, there's certain really, really bad ones, the immediate human reaction is to understandably think, oh dear, the end is nigh. Well, let me tell you, it is not. It is not. Because I firmly believe, and I've learnt this from my own experience over the last nearly 2 years, that the stronger you believe in the will to live, and the more you live your life with a positive attitude and the desire to beat something as potentially as horrible as cancer can be, I do believe you can actually achieve it. And I, so far, touch wood, have been fortunate enough to actually find myself in a situation where I'm still here and I probably shouldn't have been. So I'll elaborate on that a bit further. So in the next hour or so, if you can bear with me, I'm going to break this down into two halves. The first half is about the journey, discovering, and then the process of treatments, and then going through the whole, I suppose, roller coaster of finding out whether or not I may or may not have been cured. And at the end of that, you'll see a short video. And the short video is of me doing stand-up comedy at the Glee Club. Now, hands up if you were there. Well done, thank you. So I'd expect you guys to leave the laughing, because presumably there'll be some bits I hope you find funny, but some bits you may not. The second part is about what happened when cancer and I were reunited, when I thought I was better. And that was a challenge, and it remains a challenge to this day. And I'm presently undergoing rather severe chemotherapy, with a view to, at some point, and I'll reveal this at the end, a process which I'm hoping will cure me of this particular illness. However, let's start off, if we may, if I can get my technology right, with, yes, brilliant, okay. So life before cancer for me was quite easy, really. I'd had a good, successful, enjoyable life. My career had been interesting. I had 3 different jobs in 3 different countries. I had my own little business based in the UK, which is a consultancy business. I'm a director of a company based in Ireland called Utrack Software Solutions, and in 10 years we've gone from being a fairy tale dream of a few blokes in the shed of a laptop to one of the world's biggest suppliers of what we do in terms of cloud-based technology for transport companies. Some of our clients include the likes of a Greyhound bus, for example, in America, the iconic brand that is. In addition, there's an organisation called First Student, who carries 6.5 million school kids across America every day. And we supply the technology behind a lot of that. We also work at National Express Coach and with First Group and various other companies. So that's been like a great adventure. And we've got a fantastic office based in Dublin. One of my joys was flying off to Dublin and frankly going to Temple Bar after work and enjoying the delights that Ireland has to offer in terms of its crack and hospitality, as I'm sure you can imagine. The second business is a Polish-based business, where myself and my business partner own a company called Verita HR, and it's grown in 10 years from nothing, 8 staff, to now become a very large enterprise across Poland. We employ about 65 staff in an office in Warsaw, 30 in Krakow, and we have an office now in Canary Wharf, actually. We've gone into the world of Bitcoin and fintech. Now, I'm not going to ask you if you know anything about that, because it's far too complicated for me to explain. I don't really understand it, quite frankly. But it's about making lots and lots of money. So I was just living this life, you know. In addition to which, I had another job as chairman of a thing called the Bus and Coach Forum and Chartered Transport and Logistics, which has been my main theme throughout my career. I spent my entire life in the bus and coach industry. And, you know, that kind of gave me so many rich benefits. And it was good. And in between all that, I'm teaching karate in my own karate dojo. And I'm delighted to say, a few of the lads are here tonight. Just to make a point, if I may, I actually worked out there's actually 24 black belt grades here. So if you don't laugh at the right bits, I'll get the boys around in there. Encourage you. So life before cancer, that's me on the left. That was in November 2017. And it was kind of one of those cold November days, you know. And it was a beautiful day to go cycling. So my partner Yvonne and my friend Eamon, our co-director at UTRAC, we went to Warwick, and that was me, posing badly in the rather nice cycling uniform I was lent to by Yvonne, who actually did the cycling between London and Paris and got the T-shirt, which I borrowed pretending I'd actually been on the trip and clearly had not, obviously. Before cancer. So when did that change? I'll tell you exactly when it changed. It changed in the first week of January 2018, because that was a week, and I'll be a little graphic, that was a week my bowel habits changed. Now, let me just be honest here. We're all, you know, all human beings. We have the same digestion system. I see no reason for any language inappropriate, and that's not my style. But I noticed that having been described as a regular attender of the laboratory facilities, fairly sort of same time every day, as it were, and you know, relatively kind of comfortable in that circumstance, it started to change quite dramatically. And you know, all I can say is it became a lot more regular, a lot looser in terms of what was being ejected, and it caused me some concern, obviously. So I did the decent thing, being stiff upper lip Englishman, and ignored it. Now do go away. Because that's what we do, don't we? We just tell, oh, no. We shan't bother that malarkey, thank you very much. It'll somebody else, not me. 6 weeks later, I realised, actually, this was not going to go away. This was here, and it was getting worse. So I rang my GP, who I've been with for a few years, and went to see him, and he said, yes. He said, your symptoms are typical, he said, you've got IDS. IDS? Ian Duncan Smith? Surely not. Oh, bit of politics there, sorry. Careful, Birks. IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. That was what he had to say. He said, it's quite common. Men of your age get this. So he said, go to Morrison's, go to the chemist, get some stuff. So, being an Englishman, I said, of course, doctor, you're completely right. And off I went. Went to Morrison's and bought me tablets. No effect at all. It got worse. By this stage, I was at that point where I knew there was a problem. And again, stupidly, I didn't do what I should have done. I should have gone straight back, banged on the door and said, do you know what? This isn't right. And I didn't do it. Another 6 weeks in, and I went back to him. And I said, look, doc, this is getting serious now. No, I'm sure I know what it is. Stupidly, didn't listen to my own conscience, should have done, went away again. And by July, I was in serious trouble. My weight started to diminish quite rapidly. My face colour had changed. My energy levels were sapping. I felt lethargic. The energy, which I've usually been quite passionate about in terms of my everyday living and fitness, which is a very key part of my world. Hi, welcome. All of a sudden, I noticed this is not working. This is not good. So I went back again the third time. And this time I said to him, do you know what? This isn't working. We need to do something. He said, okay, I need you to give me a stool sample. Fine. So I did. Sent it back. Off we go. Ring back in 5 days. Rang back in 5 days. Oh, not back yet. 12 days later, I rang up. We've lost it. It's gone. We don't know where it is. Ooh, okay. That's not good. Do it again and come back. Well, do you know what? No. At this stage, my partner Yvonne and Eamon said to me, do you know what? This is no longer in your control. You need to get private health care. So I rang Nuffield in Warwick, and I went down. It was quite interesting because I walked in. Good morning, hello. My name is, before you actually, no, card please. Ah, yes, very good. Ka-ching! Oh, yes. Let's not go political again, Birks, so keep away from Mr. Trump. But suffice to say, 250 quid later, they got my name and details. That was great. I did a day of comprehensive tests. Fantastic. A week later, got a phone call. Come back and see a nice man called Dr. John. Brilliant. Okay, Dr. John. So walked in. He said, "We've got your results." I said, "Yes." He said, "You've got salmonella poisoning." Have I? He said, "Have you been to any African ports?" Ah, African ports. African ports? No. Closest I got, West Midlands Safari Park. Obviously. So I said to him, "Does that count?" "No. It does not count, Mr. Birks. West Midlands Safari Park is not an African port." "More tests, please." "Very good, more tests." A week later, I went back, and it got worse. He said, "We found out you've got a thing called," I'll try and get it right, lepistosis, all right? Terrible names, lepistosis, I think that's what it was, or Wells disease, right? So I made a fatal mistake. Don't do this at home. Do not go into Dr. Google. The worst thing you can do is put something into Dr. Google and read all about it, okay? Because this disease was some sort of triffid-style thing that ate you from the inside. It looked horrific. And I thought, well, I haven't got that. You know, there's no triffids inside me as far as I know. There were some rather large ladies in Chicago who'd been eaten alive by this horrible stuff, but it wasn't me. So they said, "Okay, look, we got it wrong." I was referred then to a man called Dr. Peter Skalatis, who was a bowel cancer specialist. Lovely man. He said to me, "I don't think you've got bowel cancer." I said, "Good." But he said, "You need a CT scan. That's going to give us a really good indication as to what is going on inside of you." But he said, "I'm going on holiday for a week or two, but I'll arrange for that to happen on Wednesday." Now, me being me, I decided it was a good idea not to go, because I had a judging job to do in London. And Yvonne and Eamon said to me, "You're going. You're going." By this time, I'd lost a lot of weight. I felt ill, and I just felt unwell. And I thought, do you know what? The inner voice inside my head for the first time said, "Don't be an idiot. Go and do what you need to do." CT scan went, fine. And then the following Friday, I was actually asleep. It was 10:49 in the morning. I had a phone call. Didn't recognise the number. "Dr. Skalatis." "Hello. I thought you were on holiday." "I am." He said, "I've just had a phone call," he said, "from the guy who's done your CT scan. And he said, I've got to tell you," he said, "it's really bad news." So I said, "Okay." He said, "We've discovered a very large tumour on your abdomen, and you need to go to hospital now. I mean, now." So, with that in mind, do not pass go. Do not go straight to jail. Go straight to hospital. So an hour later, I found myself in Warwick Hospital. And I have to say, when I walked in there, the amazing care and treatment I got was beyond reproach. I mean, these guys were so good. Straight in there, and it was kind of, put the smock on, take your bloods, do this, do that, do the other. And two doctors came in and said, "Right, young man, we're going to look after you." And I felt reassured. I felt in safe hands. It felt like a good experience. But I did not know what to expect. So they took me to a ward, and they said, "Unfortunately for you, nature of your illness was so bad, in terms of, dare I say it, the diarrhea, etc., that you need to go in isolation for 24 hours. So they put me in a special room on my own. Probably a good idea on reflection. And where I was treated. And I was introduced to the angel who saved my life, a wonderful lady called Karen Busby. And she came to see me. And she was one of those wonderful surgeons who had this air of authority and confidence about her. And she breezed in, "Ah, Mr. Birks." She reminded me a bit like one of those old character actors in sort of the Alistair Sim era of acting, for those old enough to remember Alistair Sim. And she sort of said to me, yes, we're going to cut you open, take out this naughty tumour, and we're going to stitch you back up, and, oh, by the way, you're going to have a stoma bag. Am I? Good. What's one of those? Well, she said a stoma bag is because, unfortunately, your rear passage will no longer serve the function it was built to do. We're going to make a special little operation. We're going to pull your bladder out, make an incision, and that will then become your, quote, waste disposal unit. Marvellous. Didn't really realise what the implications of that were at the time. So the next day on a Sunday, I got whisked upstairs, by this chap, and he said, right, and they said, count to 10. Well, you never do count to 10, do you, under anaesthetic? You count to 7. And then I woke up, and I woke up in a very special place. So the place I woke up in is this wonderful institution, the critical care unit. Now, what I didn't realise in my naivety and my youthful innocence was just how desperately ill I actually was. So what actually happened was that when they operated upon me, all this disgusting stuff that was inside me came out, and it infected other parts of the body. And unfortunately for me, what I didn't realise at the time was a cancer had grown so aggressively that it actually burst through the bowel wall of the stomach, which basically meant that the cancer cells had escaped. Now, I didn't know that. Good news for me. So they decided that because of the risk of sepsis, which I was actually under, I had to spend 3 days in the critical care unit. Now, that might sound like a bad experience, but let me tell you, it was not a bad experience, because I got introduced to my new best friend, Mr. Morphine. Now, I don't know about you, but unless you've had the joy of morphine, you have no idea what happy place exists. I had several adventures. The best one, and I can picture it to this day, right? So I used to enjoy going to sleep after morphine, because what actually happened was my bed converted into a magic carpet. And I just whisked my way around the world, 7 continents, you name it, I went everywhere. It was great. I remember waking up one day, and there were several doctors and nurses, and they said, "Oh, Mr. Birks, are you back?" I said, "Yes." And they said, "You okay?" I said, "Yes, I've been to Narnia." I said, "It's great, you should go. I've got one of these things I can polish it in a journey." Anyway. So my family came to see me, and I spoke gibberish, quite frankly. Hadn't got a clue. But in those 3 days I was there, I recovered from the sepsis scare. And I got put onto a cancer ward. Now, that was an interesting experience, because I've never really been in hospital in my entire life. And here I was suddenly the new boy on the block. So when you go into a hospital ward, there's a kind of pecking order. It's a bit like going to school again. There's the mature people who've been there for a while, know the score, know everybody, they're the man, the bloke. Then there's guys who are kind of fresh and new, and some aren't very well, and I was the new kid on the block. So having been a new kid all my life on the block, having gone to 7 different schools when I was younger, kind of learnt the rules. Keep your head down and just watch and observe and quietly learn what's going on. So the first experience I had was being woken up with 26 stitches inside me. And they said, "You need to go and do some physio, stand up." Well, I couldn't get out of bed. The pain was quite severe. So I thought, do you know what? Never give up, never give in. That's what we say in the karate dojo. So I thought, to hell with this. So I got myself out of bed. Man, it hurt, right? The pain was, But I made myself walk around the bed. And they said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm walking around the bed." They said, "We're just supposed to stand up and sit down in that chair. Just come back. I said, "What?" So I made a point from that point on. Every day, they said to me, "You're going to walk around the ward." I went around twice. Whatever they said, I did twice as much. Why? Because yes, I'm a pig-headed old fool, but more importantly, I felt that the key to my success in terms of my recovery was my physicality. If I felt strong and well, I'm going to feel strong and well here. Yeah? Make sense? So that's precisely what I made myself do. The second thing I had to learn was to manage my stoma bag. Now I've got to be careful here, because when you learn to manage a stoma bag, you get a lovely nurse and she says, "Well, Mr. Birks, you have to put this bag on you." I won't show you, it's a bit, no, whatever. But basically, you then have to sort of learn to take it off, clean yourself up, and put a new bag on, okay? That's what you have to do. Sounds easy, doesn't it? Not quite so simple in practice, because you don't realise sometimes the adhesive doesn't work. And I had a visitor one day, a special visitor came to see me, and the damn thing burst. And it was like, "Yeah!" And this poor person sort of sat there going, what's going on here? So we dealt with that. And I have to say, the key things I've learned about having cancer and about fighting this illness is you've got to learn to embrace what you're given. You've got a choice for the stoma bag. You can choose either to think it's the worst thing in the world and it's going to destroy your life, or you think, do you know what? This is going to save my life and I'll make my best mate, my friend. You can actually get these things customised. You can have little pictures on the front if you like. In fact, here's one I prepared earlier. This is my personal favourite, and this was done for me by my wonderful partner, the lovely Dr. Scarban. And basically, because I love buses so much, she got me one of these. There you go. How good is that, one mate? They've got buses on it. So that's great, you see. You can go around anywhere you like, put it to your heart's content. No one knows a thing about it, and then you go home and change it. So basically, I decided that this was part of my life-saving mechanism, and I was going to make sure it worked. And I did. And from that point to this, never looked back. I've only had what I call 3 close encounters of the third kind, if I can put it that way. One is in a hotel in Blackpool, when I'd been giving a presentation at a big prestigious award. There were 600 people there in a dinner jacket. And I thought, oh, this is playing up. Don't do anything embarrassing. And I managed to get away with it to got into the lift of the hotel, and I realised there was, should we say, an escape party had been led. And fortunately for me, the person in the lift didn't realise, so I just discreetly pulled my jacket across, like so, and got off at the wrong floor because I was going to get the hell out of there and sort myself out as quickly as possible. So I did, and that was good. So basically, I sort of learnt to live with that. I'll come back to this particular issue a bit later on because it's quite interesting. So basically, as it says here, bowel cancer has arrived. So the situation is, I'm going to live with this new world, okay? And it's a bit scary because you think, well, I didn't actually know if I still had cancer or not, you know? They weren't too sure. So I then met the most wonderful man, a man called Dr. Peter Carrera, who's, I'll try and get this right, oconologist. Is that right? Thank you, yes. I always get it wrong, a bit like that really, you know, same with technology. And this man really was one of these kind of, how can I put it? He's an expert in cancer and looking after cancer patients, but he has such a compassion and a kindness about him, you know, that you felt from day one you were under his protection. There was like a cushion, and his expertise was significant, you know, and it made you feel good and confident, like you felt as if you were in good hands. So he said to me, we're now going to start the process of chemotherapy. And I was okay. I was still kind of in the hospital stage and about to go home. And I thought, okay, well, I need to deal with this. This is the next chapter in this journey. So I've got a choice. I can either, again, confront it, deal with it, or shy away and pretend it's not going to happen. Well, you can't do that. You can't do that. So I chose the best option, which is to attack it and to deal with it. And that's exactly what we did. So basically, I need to say something about these wonderful people here, okay? So my personal experience in the National Health Service was into 2 very clear, distinct parts. The first was a GP who'd spent his entire life, you know, committed to the community he served. In my case, he got it wrong, and that was unfortunate. And people said to me, oh, you should go and sue that fellow. I thought, well, do you know what? No, that's not the right thing to do. At the end of the day, this man was leaving the edge of his career, and, you know, what's that going to serve? It's just taking money from the National Health Service. I'm not interested in that. But I was interested in making sure people didn't actually suffer the same as I did. So we had a conversation about how we could make systems a bit better. Well, I didn't. Yvonne did, to be fair. So we dealt with that. And I just thought to myself, that's just been an unfortunate circumstance. However, the amazing duty of care that I received from these people behind me, which is just endemic of who they are, was beyond reproach. I mean, I could not believe how kind and generous and supportive they were in my hour of need. And not just me, but all the other people I came into contact with. I mean, they worked long hours, and many occasions they'd work through the lunch hour. They went beyond the extra mile, day in, day out. And there was one particular occasion which really struck me and had a very, very powerful effect on me. And that was 4 o'clock one morning. There was a gentleman who's admitted to the bowel cancer ward. He should never have been there. The poor man had dementia. And he spent the entire evening thrashing around. They had to put the side of the bed up. He was trying to escape. It was dreadful to watch. And at 4 a.m. in the morning, he'd do these checks every 2 hours. I was awake. And there was an agency nurse. And she was actually overlooking this guy, trying to talk to him. And I was looking at her and looking at him. And all of a sudden, he punched her straight in the face. Hit her in the eye. And she had glasses on. And I could see that the frame of her glass fell off. And it cut her face. I mean, I was mortified. Absolutely mortified. Part of me wanted to jump out of bed and punch him, which is not a good idea. The other part felt, well, he shouldn't have been here in the first place. And the next day, I said to the same nurse, I said, I witnessed what happened. I said, I'm happy to do a report, a written statement, whatever you want me to do. Don't worry about it. It happens all the time. I was like, well, you got hurt. Oh, it doesn't matter. Just dismissed it out of hand. And I thought, no one gets paid enough. No job, really, to deal with that stuff. And I know it was an exception. But I thought it was indicative of the duty of care and the kindness of these people. So, my experience in the NHS, for what it's worth, ladies and gents, has been absolutely brilliant, and continues so to be. So if you find yourself in a situation, even if the experience may be not a good one, you'll find many, many people who will care for you and look after you, okay? It's really important, really important. So the day I actually went home, I got this particular image behind me of U2, not just because I love U2, who doesn't, you know. But the day came, I'd been in hospital, I think, 14 days. And I'd never left the hospital in that entire time. And you're in like a bit of a shell. You know, you're kind of in this world where that's all you know. And suddenly, you find yourself outside in the fresh air. It was a beautiful, crisp day, and the sun was shining, blue skies. And I make no apologies for this. I got in the car and sat down. We were driving out of Warwick, and on the left-hand side is a cemetery. And I just, you know, oops. And I pressed the button on the radio, and this song came on. And do you know what? I just completely lost it. I bawled my eyes out. I actually worked out I bawled for a geographical distance of 16.2 miles. Which actually is quite a long bawl, to be fair. But if you're going to bawl, do it in style. So I eventually ceased just outside of Ruby, I think it was, in Birmingham, and pulled myself together and went home. And it really struck me just how lucky I was. And one of the things that I discovered the day before I left hospital was one of the nurses, who was a really nice young woman. She said to me, have you ever realised why those young medical students come in and see you every afternoon? I said, no. I just assumed they were just popping in, as they do, you know. No, she said, because basically, against all the odds, you survived. If they hadn't found that tumour and they did, you'd been dead in 4 weeks. Which is quite a sobering thought, really. Because I never thought it was as bad as that. And suddenly it hit me, you know, bang. It could have been so much worse. But it wasn't. I was alive, strong, vibrant, well, determined to beat it, ready for whatever I could face, okay? And the next part of the process, the next part of the journey was the chemotherapy. Now you mention chemotherapy to people, often it has an image of dread and of illness and of pain and fatigue and all those things, okay? And yes, there is part of that, but also you've got to bear in mind they're trying to save your life. This is designed to make you better. And those chemicals they pump inside of you are designed to sort of kill those cells. But it's a bit of a lottery because they chuck everything in, you know, and other things get in the way sometimes. But I discovered quite early on that my chemo wasn't as bad as I thought. The side effects were fairly minor, tingling my hands and my feet, which you might think sounds okay, but it doesn't stop. It goes on 24 hours a day. Insomnia, bless you and a curse, insomnia. On the one hand, you can't sleep all night, it's dreadful because the steroids kick in. On the other hand, if you're like a prolific blogger like I am, it's fantastic because you get a lot of inspiration in the early hours of the morning to write whatever nonsense you feel like writing. And there's plenty of that, as some of you may have seen. So suffice to say, I found that the chemo situation with me was quite a challenge. 15 doses of it. However, fortunately for me, I had a distraction. And the distraction was my lovely partner Yvonne said to me one afternoon, she said, how do you fancy raising money for Cancer Research UK? Yes, brilliant. Good, because I've just signed you up to do a 5-minute stand-up gig at the Glee Club in Birmingham. Have you? I said. Have you really? So, yes, 450 people are going to come and watch you. Are they? So you don't just kind of get fed to the lions. It's a very careful process. And we had 8 lessons with a professional comedian at the Hare and Hounds pub in King's Heath in Birmingham. A man called James Cook, very funny guy. But he's also, James, not just a good comedian, he's learnt the art to teach stand-up comedy. And it's a skill in itself. You can't just stand up and recite gags. Just send them an email with the gags on. It's easier. You have to work out your own material. You have to write it. You hope to God it's going to be funny, and you have to deliver it, okay? So what I'm going to show you now, if you'd like to see it, is a stand-up. You want to see it? Yeah. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My dear chums, being on the stage tonight reminds me very much of the first time I ever fell in love. Remember that happy occasion? Walked into a pub, and there before me a vision of beauty as if descended from Mount Olympus itself. Face of an angel, eyes that could bore deep into the very fabric of the soul, hair flowing long, flaxen and gold. Size 10, shoes, massive, huge feet, seriously large clodhoppers, which is fine because I myself am a size 11. As you know, gentlemen, big feet, big hands, it's true. So after a few weeks of a relationship, I thought maybe a little nickname, a term of endearment might be appropriate. Looking back, Bigfoot was a bad idea. I was really dispatching a red car and showed the door, as you do. But that's fine, you never know. So these days, I'm very fortunate. I live with my wonderful partner. She's fantastic. She's a little different. She's from Germany. Deutsche, ja. Jawohl, jawohl, ich liebe Alkohol. Now, obviously, she doesn't actually speak like that. It's like demonic. So yes, it's interesting because there are massive cultural differences between the Germans and the Brits. So I thought I'd do some research. So I went to a bookshop. Remember them? Bought a book. And it was interesting because the book said the difference between the German and Brits are significant and immense. So one example is, let's take, for example, intimate relations. Yes, or dare I say the SEX word. My book said, and I quote, to a German person, having intimate relations is a banal activity, just like putting out the bins. Putting out the bins? Dear God above. For an elderly English gentleman like myself, this was a completely alien idea. In my personal experience of intimate relations, they required detailed negotiations about intimate relations in the first place. You didn't just put the bins out. No. The way I describe it, it's a bit like trying to agree a pay award with the trade union movement, basically. Yes, you have to negotiate long and hard. Collective bargaining is required, let me tell you. And, as always, money has to change it. No, actually, my money has to change it. Let's get it right, shall we? So, of course, when she actually moved in, I could not believe my luck. The bins were out on a regular basis. As far as I was concerned, I'd won the National Lottery and the World Cup all at once. It was great. So one Saturday afternoon, I sat watching the television, and I said to her, "Mein lieben Frau München, the advert's coming shortly. How about we go into the back garden and put out the bins?" "Was is this darkness you speak of? You want to play Heidi Schnitzel in the garden?" Nein. No, you misunderstand. What I'm suggesting is very exciting. Got in here, yeah. Raus, schnell, Achtung! So off it goes. I decided the best thing, quick reconnaissance, no silent neighbours. So I thought I'd adopt, for the sake of the exercise, what the RAF call rear gunner position. If you know what I'm talking about. So I proceed to put out the bins. All is going swimmingly, when suddenly to my abject horror, I hear my next door neighbour Janet. "I don't know what's going on next door, but I'm trying to water my geraniums." "Well, yes, Janet. I know the feeling." Anyway, I shouted back, "Listen, Janet, don't worry. I've almost finished my sortie. In fact, oh, hang on, some of the crowd on the pitch. They think it's all over. It is now." So these days, of course, it's a bit different, really. Complacency sets in, doesn't it? Kills passion. Nowadays, the bins go out once a month from lucky birthdays, Christmas, David Hasselhoff's birthday. That's his birthday. Good old half. So, sadly, ladies and gentlemen, last year I'm afraid I had to have life-saving surgery. I was very ill. And basically I ended up in a place called the CCU, or Critical Care Unit. Half an hour after I woke up, a very nice nurse called Sally came in. She said, "I'm going to introduce you, young man, to your new best friend." I said, "Oh, lovely." She said, "See that white button on the left of the bed?" I said, "Yes." There's an M written on it in green. "Yes." "That's Mr. Morphine." "Ooh." Happy days, I thought. Happy days. Well, 20 minutes later, I was completely out of my tree. Hadn't got a clue what the hell was going on. Gibberish. Doctors, nurses, family, friends, all got the same treatment. Next day it got worse. Sent my mate Andy a text message. "Hello mate, I've just come second in the Grand National." Immediate reply, "WTF, World Wildlife Fund." You haven't even got a horse, mate." I said, "I didn't need one." I said, "I'd have won it, I hadn't stumbled the final furlong." So, basically, I was born with an unusual name, Austin Birks. Don't get me in the old yellow pages, so I had to look on Facebook to see if I could find anybody else out there who shared the same name as me. And I found, to my delight, a young 19-year-old American track and field athlete from Milwaukee. And every Sunday afternoon, now and again I get a nice message, be lying there, watching Bargain Hunt in my pyjamas, eating Battenberg German cake, and enjoying Earl Grey tea, when suddenly I discover I've done a new personal best for the 1,500 metres event. My coach is delighted. So basically, got me thinking about unusual names people have. Found a young girl called Hashtag. What the hell does that mean? Hashtag. I mean, I think it means label, so we'll just give her a name. You know. Devon's a lovely name. English county. But I haven't met people called Outer Hebrides or West Midlands. Not many of those around. So basically, the strangest name I came across was a gentleman from Java, whose name is, can you believe it, Batman bin Superman. Yeah. So yes, I think my time is almost up. So if you liked it, my name is Austin Birks. If not, Batman, put the bins out Superman. Thank you.
Let's have a good look for our top individual fundraiser, Austin Birks.
Let me tell you, that night was brilliant. Okay, it was great fun performing. And it's a strange sensation because until you go out on the stage, you just don't know if people are going to laugh at you or indeed with you. That makes any sense? So it's almost like you miss the first bit, but the first couple of lines, you actually feel this wave of laughter, and you can see people's faces beginning to sort of engage and become part of it. And it becomes like a sort of an energy in its own right. It was a fantastic feeling. Really good. But in the audience that night was Dr. Peter Carrera and his wife. I said to him, do you want to come and see the gig? He went, yeah. I was amazed he came, but he did, you know. And at the end of it, he came up to me and he said, that was really good, well done. I said, thank you very much. What he didn't tell me was what he was going to tell me on Tuesday when we met formally at his office. So we went in to see him. And he said, right, sit down. He said, I'm going to tell you now what the situation is. He said, the CT scan has revealed your cancer was gone. Boom! Amazing, amazing. Suddenly, cancer-free. Hence the bell. Didn't ring the bell. Didn't need to. So the emotions of that were euphoric, joyous, relief. Hard to explain, really. It's suddenly kind of such a sort of intense feeling of, I suppose, also escape, dare I say. Thinking you'd actually been through all that, and somehow, you know, you'd been saved. It was amazing, amazing. And a strange thing happened, actually, because, you know, a couple of weeks after, I started to feel a bit guilty, which is odd, isn't it? Why would you feel guilty about that? And the reason, when I kind of thought about it, was because for a period of 3 months, 4 months, whatever, 6 months, I'd been a cancer patient. That defined who I was. Every day, I had a role to play. I had blood tests, I had nurses, I had chemo, I had this, I had that. And suddenly, I found myself rudderless. All that had gone, kind of evaporated overnight. And it's a strange feeling because, you know, of course you want to be well and you want to get back to normality, you want all the things. And I was thinking, great, I can get this bag reversal, you know. I can go back to normal, I can just be the man I used to be before. I can go back to all those things I did before. And it felt great, but at the same time, oddly kind of unfulfilling in a strange way. Does that make any sense? Because you've been on one journey and it ends and you're not ready yet to go back to what you were before. And actually, if the truth be told, ladies and gentlemen, I like not working for a living. It was damn good. And the funny thing was, all my directors were saying, don't you worry about it, mate, because since you've gone, we've done much better. What the hell? So basically, I found myself in a strange world. Then I went for what they call a PEP scan, PET scan, which is an all-over-body scan to see if the cancer had spread, MRI scans and CT scans. And in October, on the 7th of October, I got called back in for a colonoscopy examination, where Miss Busby, remember her, wonderful woman, yes, Mr. Birks, I'm going to stick this camera inside you and we're going to have a good old look around in Mr. Bladder and see what's there. Good, good, marvellous, marvellous. Oh, and by the way, CT scan has shown your cancer's come back. What? I'm going to stick it in the other side and we're going to have a look and see what's going on. So they did the bladder and then they did the other thing. And she took out 5 cancerous polyps. And she said, I've got these polyps. Do you want to see them on the screen? No, thank you, if you don't mind. I'm all right, thanks. You know. And then I went afterwards into what they call the quiet room. And the quiet room is when they tell you the bad news. So she sat me down, and you can tell it's bad news because it's like a big box of tissues They're not for her, let me tell you. Prepare yourself. So she said, your cancer's back. And it's back in 2 places that we know of, in the bowel. And all of a sudden, all that euphoria, all that happiness is tempered by the fact that suddenly this awful illness is back. And it's back with a bit of a vengeance. So, from that point on, you have to say, again, inner resources, never give up, never give in. You don't let it get you, okay? If it comes back. So the saying we have in the martial arts, and it says, goes back to the samurai warrior sort of ethos, and it says, get knocked down 7 times, stand up 8. And it's the same with this. No matter what it throws at you, you cannot afford to let it beat you. You have to stand up, you have to beat it. That's my project management, keeping myself alive. Very powerful. So, had to change, hang on a sec, had to change everything, and had to come to terms with this. Back in town. So, Dr. Peter, being the man he is, says, okay. He said, we're going to do a CT scan, find out where it is exactly and what we're going to do about it. I said, okay. So we had a CT scan. And I was at the Troxy, which is a big venue in London, about to present at the UK Bus and Coach Awards in front of 750 colleagues. I'm there, poised behind the stage like a caged tiger, ready to go on the stage and give it my best shot. Young Manager of the Year award, and the winner is, all that stuff. And the phone rang. And it's Dr. Peter. Oh, hang on, better take this. You need to get back here as soon as you can for a CT scan. It's like quite an emergency. So I went on stage, did the bit, went home. Next day, back to the hospital, CT scan. Came back a week later, he said, your cancer's spread. What? It's spread. It's now in your bladder. Is that right? Bowel. Oh, it's in the bowel already, sorry. It's gone to the other bit. 2 bits in the... Sorry. No. I'll come back to you later. It's gone into the bladder. That's right. So it's in the bowel in 2 places. It's like charades, you know. So it's in the rectal stump, which is a cricket term. Apparently it's not. And also in the inner bowel, which isn't quite so good, actually. But also they found the shadow, and the shadow was in a particular place. And the particular place, I'll try and remember the name, but I'm not very good with names, you know, not very good with this technology either. And the particular part was in the urethra, yeah? Not to be confused with the uterus, which apparently I don't have. That's not part of that process at all. And that kind of got me thinking about stoma bags. Didn't actually, come to that later. The reason I put that slide there is because I talked earlier on about the importance about managing yourself with the stoma bag. I'd like to think that was me, actually. Obviously it's not, as you can tell. He's a very honed young man with a fine piece of stoma just there. And when I was in the hospital, I had one of those strange experiences. You know, people come and go like ships of the night in these hospital wards, you know, and they just appear next to you. There's a young man, probably, I think about 21, 22. And it was one of those conversations where he came in and he was on his own, and it was quite early hours in the morning, couldn't sleep, he couldn't sleep, so we had a little natter, as you do. And I spoke to him and I said, he hadn't got cancer, he had something else, Crohn's disease, I think. But he had to have a bag fitted. And he said to me, even though he didn't really know me, he said, I can't believe, he said, at the age of whatever, it was 21, he said, my life's ended, really. He said, how can I ever get a girlfriend one of these? He said, it's never going to happen, is it? He said, I want to explain to somebody what's happened. I said, well, you say that. I said, but, you know, you never know. You never know. I said, people don't judge you on what's hanging off you. They judge you on what's inside you and who you are, what your personality is like, what your humanity is like. We can put up with all sorts, you know, as long as the person's right. So I said, so tell me, I said, as a young man, I said, how do you go about dating? He said, well, he said, I've got an app, Match.com, plenty of fish. The list went on. He said, what about you? I said, well, in my day, we had barn dances and discos, and you would do-si-do. And then, invariably, I said, at the end of the night when the slowies came on, you'd spend the evening purveying the dance floor to find the lady of your dreams, and you'd walk across nonchalantly and then ask for the dance, get rejected, and walk back with the eternal walk of shame as your better-looking mates walked off. So I said to him, listen, I think you're overplaying this too much. I said, why don't we, I said, create a special app for people with stoma bags? That way you know what you're going to get. So man meets man meets a woman, vice versa, and vice versa. And if you're all in the same club, you've got common denominators. There's nothing unusual, no hidden surprises. It's great. I said, we can combine this with Tinder and we'll call it Stomda. Now, I did that as a joke, quite frankly. Did that as a joke, obviously. And in all fairness, I was quite surprised because I put it onto the website. And somebody got in touch with me and said, are you going on Dragon's Den with this? No. Well, you should. It's a genius idea. So I decided not to, left it. No. Hands up, who knows who that young lady there is? Okay, if you're under the age of 40, okay, I'll tell you who she is. Her name is Ulrika Jonsson. Okay? Ulrika Jonsson, in the 90s, was a Swedish weather girl on British television. As you can see, she's a very attractive young lady. Yeah? Lovely personality. And she became a presenter on a program in the 90s, which was massively popular in Saturday night, called Gladiators. Remember Gladiators? Yeah? With Wolf, the baddie, and all that. So what the hell has that got to do with having cancer, I hear you ask? Well, let me tell you. When I realised I could never remember the word urethra, I decided to employ a tactic which was used when I was at school. So if you don't remember the word, you think of something that sounds a bit similar. So I came up with two options, Aretha Franklin, obviously, and Ulrika Jonsson. And I decided to go for Ulrika Jonsson. So fast forward a few weeks, and I'm in the city centre of Birmingham, and I bump into a friend of mine. Hadn't seen him since I got the all clear. He said, how are you doing? I said, oh, God. I said, it's not good. He said, what's the matter? I said, well, the cancer's back. Oh, no. He said, where's it back? I said, it's in my Ulrika Jonsson. You've got cancer in the Johnson? No. And then he said, I quote, didn't she go out with Sven-Göran Eriksson? She did. And also, Hunter from Gladiators, to be fair. So basically, you know, I still find it funny. And I probably shouldn't have squandered your time with that. It just kind of amuses me, really. So it is part of the comedy which you get with cancer. And one of the things I didn't mention earlier was that when I was doing the stand-up comedy thing, I had a whole routine all about having cancer, which I'd kind of worked on in the early hours of the morning in hospital and stuff. Funny things that kind of happen. And the first thing that James Cook said to us on the first day, he said, you cannot mention the word cancer at the gig. And he said, the reason you can't mention it is because 450 people there, most of them have been through some sort of loss or bereavement or know somebody who got cancer. And therefore you can't taboo. So I thought, great, straight in the bin with that then. Thank you very much. Start again. But I suppose it taught me also about the sensitivities around the illness and the disease, you know, and why it's so important that you have to sort of be careful how you talk about these things, because they are very personal, very sensitive, and we all have different ways of reaction, don't we? You know, and you have to be careful with that sometimes. But I've kind of used my experience as much as I can to try and share what I see as the richness and the benefit and the process of recovery and all the goodness that goes behind that, and all the benevolence and the kindness that people show you, and it's fantastic. So I'm going to finish off, if I may, with showing you a video. Actually, before I do, show you something else. Don't worry, I've got it, Nige. Yeah, so Craig David, obviously, 7 days. Why have I mentioned that? I'll tell you for why, because I want to tell you a little bit about what my cancerous journey is right now. So I have like a fortnight cycle. On a Monday, blood test, Stratford Hospital. Tuesday, cancer nurse. Wednesday, 9 hours of chemo, 8:30 till 5:30. When they pump 4 bits of saline drip into me, and I get a special injection. First time I got the injection, they said, have you been stung by a wasp? I said, yes, stung by a wasp. Oh, good. Stung by a bee? Yes, stung by a bee. Stung by a hornet? No. Guess what? You're about to be stung by a hornet. And so they pump this thing into you. What they do is like molten feeling of burning in your arm, you know, and it's quite painful. It lasts about a minute, then it stops. So it doesn't hurt that much. So I dealt with that. So then, what they do then is they attach a bag to you on a thing called a mount, which is on your chest, like a special thing where they put the syringe in. And this is like a bag. It looks like a St. Bernard dog, except it hasn't got brandy in it. It's got very toxic stuff. What it does is it fuses into your system over 48 hours, the duration of the life of the cancer cell, effectively, designed to kill it. And you have to take it off on the Friday. And on the Saturday and the Sunday, you then take the steroids, 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock, religiously. And those steroids are strong. And that's okay, then you stop. Then you get 2 days when you're at kind of incubation. And then after that, 7 days of daily injecting yourself in the stomach, which is quite tough. First time I did it, I felt I've been watching too many samurai films, you know, all that sort of stuff. So I've got this injection, and you squeeze your stomach, and you pump it in. And the first time you kind of, go on, son, go on, just do it, you know. And eventually you force yourself to do it. And it doesn't really hurt that much, actually. It's just the psychology of stabbing yourself, to be avoided at all normal costs. But what I didn't realise, and I should have done, was because the severity of the toxicity I was putting in my body was the sheer degree of, I suppose, fatigue that I felt on day 3 and day 4. Absolutely shattered. I spent 48 hours from levitating on my bed to haunting my way through the hallway of my flat and lying down on the sofa. And that was basically it. Couldn't do any better. Just morning, noon and night. It was awful. Awful. And suddenly, bang. You know, you're back in the room, as it were, as the old expression used to be. Energy's back and everything's good. So that's kind of the Craig David analogy. You know the song. That was kind of what I wanted to sort of portray in terms of sort of that experience. So, where does that lie right now? Well, I'll tell you. I went to see Dr. Peter last Tuesday, and I was supposed to have chemo on Wednesday. And he said to me, we're going to stop the chemo. Wow, brilliant. Let's stop the chemo. He said, we're going to have major surgery. And the week before being to Good Hope Hospital, I met a lovely man called Dr. Youssef, who's the Surgeon General there. And so what they're going to do to me is on March the 18th, which is a Wednesday, they're going to cut me open, and they're going to do 3 operations in one day. Now, I like the idea of this, okay? It's a bit like utility companies. You dig up the road, gas ball comes in, puts it back again. A week later, 7 train come back, you know. But no, we're going to cut all the bits of nasty out of you. And maybe, if it works, you might even have a reversal of the stomach bag. Now, I'd reconcile myself to being in palliative care. Palliative care is basically when you're no longer curable, effectively. And it's a bit of a life sentence, and you have to live with that until such time as whatever happens. And suddenly, this man gave me renewed hope, you know, which I feel very strongly is a fantastic gift to be given. So I'm determined to make the most of it and to fight it as best I can. Talking of fighting, hang on, Nudge, it's all right. Some of you guys recognise these 2 gentlemen. The gentleman on the left there, that Japanese fella, his name is Sensei Kinesuke Noida, 9th Dan, chairman of the Japan Karate Association for Europe, chairman of the Karate in Great Britain. Many of us here trained for many, many years. Many of us took our black belt with this man. He was a ferocious individual, ferocious. He had a charisma which you could feel, you know, before you entered a room. And he was the man who basically decreed and dictated the standard of karate in the United Kingdom for 20 years and made it the best in the world. The man next to him was our instructor, the boys and girls who are here today. His name is Cyril Cummings. I trained with him for 31 years of my life. He was my best friend. And both of these 2 people died from bowel cancer. Quite poignant, isn't it? 2 of the fittest men I ever knew in my life, with an indomitable spirit. Sensei Noida sadly passed away at the age of 64, 17 years ago, just after my father died. And it was a big loss. No one ever thought in a million years this energy of a man would ever succumb to cancer. But he did. My dear friend passed away on May the 17th, 2017, at the age of 79 years of age. And he decided, having had heart bypass operations and strokes, that he didn't want to go through the chemo. He had a good life. And he chose his end, you know. Now, I personally do not wish to be the 3rd person in this particular triangle, okay? I've got a will that says, not for me, thank you very much. But I wanted to share that with you because I'm going to show you a video now, and it's about karate, which some of you may know something about, some of you know nothing about. And it's a bit evocative, it's a bit outdated now because it was made when I was in recovery stage, but I think the spirit of what I'm trying to convey comes through quite well. So, with that in mind, karate allows you to sort of have the sort of the mindset whereby you can remain hopefully relatively calm, cool and collected given any challenges or circumstances that confront you. It's almost impossible to define who you are without it.
or indeed to even know who you are really. And it's also quite hard to sort of not recognise its value in every other aspect of life. You can grow stronger as a person, be a better personality, and seek that perfection of character, which karate ultimately is all about. What if I didn't have karate in my life? What would that mean? I think it would be devastating, quite frankly. It is so fundamental and strong in everything I do, not only in the training in the dojo, but also my thinking and my coping mechanisms in life. All I know is that the value I've had in my 47 years of training in karate has been immense, and has made me the person I am, I would say. It's forged the character I've become. I've never even imagined what life would be like without that never give mentality. Would I have had that without karate? Probably not. Cyril Cummings was a legendary man in many ways. If, towards the end of his life you'd met him in the street, you would not have thought for a million years this demure Irish gentleman was the force that he actually was once he walked into a dojo. His impact on my life was absolutely significant. After the death of my father, who died suddenly quite a few years ago now, he became almost kind of my second father. I trained with him for 31 years and became his senpai. He was my best friend, and we had some fantastic training sessions together. Many happy memories, a lot of laughing went on, but most of all he was an inspiring teacher with a massive mastery and knowledge of karate, which I've yet to find anybody who could match him, for so. But I don't think back on sadness. I think back with fondness and happiness, and trying to keep his legacy alive, as are many other instructors who trained me. Never give up, never give in. That gave me the strength to deal with whatever adversity in life I've had to deal with. More recently, of course, with a very nasty illness. That has kept me alive in many ways. A chance to speak to Cyril Cummings again, GM Cyril Cummings. What would I say to him? I would say, thank you. You gave me the mindset, fortitude, determination by teaching me your style of karate that allowed me to take those lessons and to try and defeat this terrible disease of cancer, amongst many other important life skills that you gave me and thousands of other people. And you don't realise until people have gone what they mean to you. I wish I could say thank you. I can remember it vividly. I had a phone call when I was actually lying in bed asleep at 10:47 in the morning, I hasten to add. And the phone call was from a doctor. And he rang me and he said, I've just had a call from the gentleman who's done the analysis of your CT scan. And I have to tell you it's not good news. You have cancer. And I've arranged for you to go straight away to hospital. I've got an excellent lady surgeon who's going to operate on you immediately, but you need to go right now. I went into immediate, okay, let's get on with it mode. I didn't stop and give myself any time for reflection. I just thought, I need to go and deal with this. And that's precisely what I did. Within less than an hour, I was at the hospital. It was something which I said from day one, I was not going to let this define me or change me in any way, shape or form. And in fact, within 3 weeks of the surgery, I was back in this very dojo, attempting to do a kata, because I did not want to let cancer beat me or prevent me from doing anything. And so I just refused to let it. Never felt like giving up. Never even occurred to me, because even if those darkest thoughts came, I'd hear the voice of my sensei, Shihan Cyril Cummings, in the back of my head saying, never give up, never give in. And to be quite honest with you, that's never been an issue for me. I resolutely believe quite strongly that karate and the spirit of karate and working through the pain, the sweat, the perseverance, the tests, the challenges, the gradings, the failures, all those things conspire to make you a stronger, better person. If you adopt that path, never ever about giving up or giving in, even in the darkest times, when at moments during my treatment, because the first treatments didn't work, it was quite a difficult situation. And I remember once when the nurse was saying to me that, if this treatment doesn't work and the cancer coming back, then I'm afraid there's not much we can do. That's a pretty powerful and evocative sort of challenge to face. I'm not going to let this beat me. Never give up, never give in. That's it, carry on. Don't let the dark side in, just keep it blocked out. If it comes back, kick it out. I've never let the bag or any fear of the bag or myself being injured ever change anything. And the truth of the matter is that there's no reason why you can't live an ordinary life with a stoma bag. Many people do. It depends on your attitude. You just have to sort of say to yourself, actually, this is part of your life-saving process. It serves an important function. It's never stopped me putting a gi on it, never will. The chemo itself is a challenge in so much as I have what they call a PICC line put into my vein in my arm, which meant that the chemotherapy treatment went straight into the chest. But again, I just wrapped it up and put a gi around it. In terms of my physicality, my fitness levels, you know, regular daily training at the gym, spin classes, all sorts of other training, I actually feel stronger and fitter than I ever have done. If anything, it's inspired me more than ever to focus myself and my journey on my next downgrade, which is to take my rocket down, my 6th Dan examination. I look back on it now and I think maybe there's a reason why I ended up with this illness, and if I can get one person to check themselves, or a family member to get themselves diagnosed, to get themselves treated before it's becoming too late or it's a big problem, then as far as I'm concerned, that's a worthy message. So everything I've done in terms of fundraising and all the other activities since I was diagnosed, every second of that time I spent, I've come to realise that time is the most precious gift anybody's got. We waste it, we take it for granted, and that's a real tragedy, because you know you can't recreate memories, and I've come to learn that you have to do things that you wanted to do, and you have to embrace life, and you have to live it, not just survive it. It's not as bad as you think. That's number one. People have this understandable paranoia that once you're diagnosed with cancer, oh well, that's it, the end is nigh. It's not. The reality is that not a week goes by when there's not a medical breakthrough in various elements of cancer research and cancer treatments. And I think that you need to adopt a strong, positive mental attitude towards defeating the illness. And I've been blessed and fortunate to have an amazing web and family of support from my own family, my karate family, my work family, friends I've known for many, many years, all over the world. And it's just like, I describe it like a well of well-being that they create for you. And if occasionally you get into a dark place, call upon those resources and feed off it, because it's a powerful force. Love and kindness can beat anything, and that's what you need to kind of understand. And don't worry about it, just do your best, keep focused. Never give up, never give in.
Well, you can hear a pin drop coming. So, that concludes today's sermon. I hope it's been of interest. I hope it's been of some value in terms of understanding the journey and all that's gone before it. As I said at the very beginning of this, I'm just an ordinary person. There's nothing special, nothing unique about me, or indeed any of us. I just happen to be somebody who got cancer. But I chose not to let the cancer try and beat me. And if I can do it, anybody can do it. That's the message. If those who are closest to you, you care for and love, if you're worried about them, get them checked. Don't hang back. Don't be too English. Don't be like me. Do the right thing. Thank you. Thank you. Cheers.
Follow that. So that for me was about the best use of silence I've ever seen in my life from that end of that video. So thanks very much, Austin.
Pleasure.
What I'd like to do now, if it's okay with everyone in the room, is just open the floor to a few questions. If you've got any questions you want to ask of Austin, please just fire away.
Given that at the beginning of the whole process, NHS actually failed you, and I believe that it's a typical situation of NHS these days. You go to them, complain about work with any charity organization or yourself to think of correcting the situation and getting GPs to take things more serious? Because a lot of people have been in this situation, and some people are not lucky enough to recover, they've lost their life because of the negligence of GPs. Are we doing anything to really correct that?
You make a very good point, to be fair. I mean, as I said in the sort of in the main thrust of the presentation, yes, you're right, I was failed, in fairness. Case for defence has argued that actually irritable bowel syndrome is very similar to the sort of same symptoms as bowel cancer. But, you know, in fairness, yes, it's a challenging one, isn't it? Because resources are absolutely stripped to the bare minimum these days for the National Health Service, and, you know, recent political activity is indicative of the fact that it's under-resourced, and very often, sadly, the resources aren't there at local levels and local surgeries. All I can say is I haven't thought about working particularly any other charities or giving any thought around that. All I would say, I think, is that the key message is, if you're not satisfied with what you think you're hearing, please challenge it. You know, go back and argue your case. One thing I discovered is that at the end of the day, you can be the nicest, politest man in the world, but if it's too late, it's too late. You know, and if you get missed on that journey, then unfortunately the consequences, it's your life, not on somebody else's. And you know, if you said to me, is there one reason why you want to stay alive? I'd say yes. There's one reason why, and that's my family and those I'm closest to. And you can't kind of remove that thread. You know, Bruce Springsteen called it the ties that bind, and they're so strong. So, you know, fight your case, put your case. And if you're not happy with what you're seeing at the GP, then, you know, make a fuss. You know, put your case. Thank you. Good question. Yes.
Thank you. My name's Ramsey. Thank you for what you said. And my question really is, I know you mentioned your family, and that's very important. Yes. And that's probably, with most people, that is the key thing that motivates them. Yeah. But after that, what else motivates you? Because it's easy to think about your family, but you're living a separate life on a day-to-day basis. Yeah,
that's very true. That's very true. I mean, yes. I mean, you know, that I deliberately didn't, in the course of this speech, make any reference to that because I find it difficult, tough one. Having said that, you know, what is it that inspired me? I think it's the fact that I would like other people not to go through what I went through. Does that make sense? And one of the biggest causes really is silence, actually. You know, knowing people who you might know even not very well, who might be showing symptoms of a devastating illness, and knocking on that door to say, are you doing something about it? Can you save that life? Can you help that person, you know, on their journey? Because, you know, it's so important as a cancer patient that you get that described in the film, that well, I'll describe it, of support, you know, that love and kindness. And those are so strong and so powerful that I actually believe that they can take you to different places. Even though you may feel terrible and you may feel all the angst and all the pain that goes with it, you know, if your desire is strong enough to stay, I think it can make you stay. And the more I talk to the medical profession, the more that resonates every single time. And also other cancer patients. The first ever chemo was in Stratford Hospital, and I was in it's a bit like a lady's hairdressers. Not I've been to many, but, you know, picking up my mum now and again. So I have these chairs, and it's kind of grouped in sort of little groups of 6. And the first time I went there were 4 ladies who were kind of clearly all knew each other, and they were discussing funeral plans. I was like, what the hell? But what I didn't realise in my naivety was that they'd all been through the process. They were now at that stage where they were having to confront where they were going next. And one of the hard things about the journey for those in a terminal illness position is you have to confront those things. You have to get your affairs in order. You have to make sure everything's proper and correct so you don't leave problems to those who you leave behind. You know, and that's a tough one to deal with. But again, you know, whether it's the Englishness of the British people, I don't know, this stiff upper lip kind of mentality that says, oh, no, you know, we don't make a fuss, we carry on regardless. It's nonsense, really. Make a damn fuss, you know, do what you need to do. Bang those bells and do what you have to get the attention of people, to get you or those you care for well. I think that's so important. Good question, thank you. Any more for anyone?
Yes, I was just thinking, outside of Showticker, how did you find you reacted while you were dipping your toe in the water for your career again?
Yeah.
how did you react in terms of deadlines and priorities and other people's priorities when you were going through that? Did you find that you were more almost hurried as such to get it resolved and fixed, or did you find that they fell more on the back burner? How did you react to that?
What a great question. Just like Patrick is a very skilled second down in our karate club, and that question is so difficult. Next Sunday, he's going to be right. No, I'm only joking. What a good question. Okay, to answer your question, the simple truth of the matter is that when I kind of went back into my work mode, I never really did go back into work. I hovered around it a little bit, you know, and I went back to Poland actually once. And the reason I went back to Poland is because the Verito HR sponsor Poland's biggest HR awards event. So it was brilliant. And it was a bit like those old enough, remember young Mr. Grace, Are You Being Served? Right? We used to appear. And so I appeared at this fantastic nightclub called the Organza nightclub in the centre of Warsaw. And all the staff are there in the VIP lounge. I have to go on the stage and make a terrible speech in bad Polish. That's what I do quite often. It gets translated, fortunately. And I remember being there thinking to myself, it's great being back in to that world again. It's great being back into where I felt I belonged. But I knew it was kind of almost new, maybe subconsciously it was almost transient. And I think, to answer your question, I don't think I've really focused that much on the work world, because what I've come to realise is that whilst it's important, and yes, we have to pay the bills and do all those things, in the bigger picture of everything, it actually is not important. You know, what is important is the people you care for, the people you love, and those who love you, and how you can do good things with the footprint you have in your life. Because you only get one shot, don't we? And it's what you do with it that counts. And I think in many ways, somebody asked me a while ago, related to this, they said, looking back, would you prefer not to have had cancer? Well, the obvious answer was, of course you would. But actually, when I reflected on it, and I thought about all the things I've experienced, and all the goodness, and all the kindness, and all the richness which people have endowed and shown myself, not just around the medical profession, I mean everything, you know. All my friends here, all my friends who aren't here, new friends you meet tonight, all these people, you know, you get something off those people, and you give something back. And at the end of the day, what more can you do? Shakespeare said, you know, we all exit stage left, pursued by a bear. Okay, so we're all going to accept the fact none of us wants to live forever. That would be a terrible thing to do, wouldn't it? Who'd want to do that? But what you can do is you can try and make a positive difference in this world, and make it a good difference, not a bad one. And that's all I'm trying to do with this world. So the Bag for Life and all the nonsensical blogs that go with it, which are written firmly tongue-in-cheek, to be fair, but they're designed also to give people that kind of that wake-up call to say, you know what, take nothing for granted, question everything you need to, keep well and strong. Good question. Don't worry about Sunday. Good. Anybody else got any more questions?
I've got a question, Austin.
Yes, sir. Yes.
It's a bit of a political question.
Okay.
It's about Brexit. Okay,
Now we're talking, yes.
So now we're no longer in Europe. Is there any trade agreements in place for putting the bins out?
I'll have to defer to my German colleagues. I thought it was a serious question there. Yeah. Next question. No, to be fair, it's great fun. And it's her birthday today. Happy birthday. So, sorry, Sophie, you had a question.
Yeah, I'm Sophie. You mentioned earlier how karate has helped you through this process so much, but karate, I know it's an amazing thing, and whoever participates it's a tool that they can use, but you've got to know how to use it right for it to help you. And I just wondered, you've got such a great mentality and you seem to have used it in a certain way that it's helped you so much. I just wanted to understand a bit more of how you think about it in order for it to give you such a great benefit.
What a good question, isn't it? And I'll tell you the answer, Sophie. The answer is that when I first started doing karate when I was 14, I thought I was Bruce Lee, you know, as you do when you're 14 and watching Enter the Dragon with all your mates kicking each other at the backside on the school bus, you know, and then you start doing a few karate lessons and they say, do you know what, the first thing you do is you take your shoes and socks off. Why would you do that? And then you're supposed to read a code called the Karate Code. I promise to uphold the true spirit of Karate Do, never to use the skills that I am taught except in defence of myself and my family or to law and order. Remember it now to this day? It's amazing, isn't it? But I discovered once I learned the kicking, punching and blocking bit, and over the decades and over the centuries and over the millenniums I've been training, that actually what really matters, and this is the key to karate, it's not punching, kicking and blocking. It's what the founder of Shotokan Karate Do, Jichin Funakoshi, the master himself, said. It's about the perfection of character. That's what it's about. Trying to make yourself perfection of character. Trying to perfect your character to become a better person. And you can spend, as many of us and some of my dear friends here have been training for decades. You know, I'm nearly at 50 years myself now. I'm expecting a clock or some sort of long service award. A barometer will do, I don't mind, you know, just something. I think that's been the key for me. The karate spirit in terms of trying to fulfill yourself and be a bit better than you were the day before, not just in your training, but also by realising the infidelity of people and your own weaknesses, and I've come to realise I've got a few of those. Work in progress, obviously. But at the end of the day, you know, I'm trying to make myself not that kind of maybe angry person, which some feel obliged to adopt when they get an illness like this. Why me? Why is it me? Why not them? You know, I understand that, but that is not the way to deal with it. That just transfers and diverts negative energy, and it doesn't use the power of positivity, which we're all blessed with. So I like to think, and that young lady, by the way, is her third dan. She's only 18, and last week she got a medal at the university's karate championship. She's very gifted, along with her dad, who's also there, and her mum. And it's great to see young people like Sophie, who are going to be, hopefully, when she's 59 3/4 one day, okay, like what I am, then you know, she'll still be doing what she does now and loving it as much. And it's a great gift to have. But we're all biased, of course, those of us who wear karate suits, aren't we? And here's not about trying to sell Shotokan, but do see me afterwards. You know. So thank you, good question. Any more questions, people, my dear friends? Yes, Alex.
The famous Irish comedian Dave Allen famously said at the end of his shows, "Good night and may your God go with you." You haven't mentioned, there's no reason why you should, but do you feel that you had any inkling of a God doing this to you, or helping you through it, or not at all?
Do you know what? That's a question and a half, and I'll give you an honest answer. This gentleman, by the way, is a dear friend of mine. We started our careers together, and I haven't seen him for many years. He's made the journey down from Durham today en route to somewhere else, so I'm so glad he's come. I'm so glad he asked that question, because I, like many, got brought up in a particular religion. I was raised in the Catholic Church. And at the age of 14, I discovered karate. And I remember telling my parents, a bit of bad news. I said, I'm giving that nonsense up for this. It went down very badly. My mother, Irish Catholic, more Catholic than the Pope, those people, I'll tell you now, okay? And my dad was a convert from Anglicanism, etc., etc. My uncle was a Catholic priest, so the residue of religion ran deep and strong in my family. And it took some courage as a young man to turn around and say, actually, do you know what? This isn't for me anymore. And but what I discovered is that when I got diagnosed, my mother's now 91, I take her to church on a Saturday. There's a wonderful man who's the parish priest. When he found out I got cancer, he came to see me at my flat. And I got told years ago I was never allowed to have Holy Communion anymore. I got banned from that, apparently, because once you sort of give up the club, you're not allowed to play anymore. Sorry, mate, your card's marked. So when he came to the flat, he came in and he told a few jokes. He was very funny, and he said, before we go, he said, I'm going to bless you and give you communion. I said, well, I don't think you can. He said, I think you'll find I can. He said, one of the gifts I have. So he said, do you want to have a go? I said, go on then, yeah. So he did, and he blessed me, and he gave me communion, and I didn't feel anything particularly special about it. But what it has made me realise is that, you know, without going to too many sort of deep corners, but for me, I think there's more to life once you leave this mortal coil. And I don't know what it is, I don't know what shape it takes, but I personally feel a sense of comfort from that. And I think that, I think maybe cancer's kind of given me a little bit more consolation and faith in that sense. And I don't know what it looks like or what guise it is or what religious name it carries. I have no idea at all. But I just carry some comfort and consolation from it. So, yeah, I'm not quite in the club yet, my friend, but you never know. Thank you. Any other questions, please? No? Well, I make it, see, being a busman, Nigel, I make it 5 to 8.
Yeah,
so I think...
4 minutes. Just
great stuff.
applause for
Thanks, mate.